I had to go to court for cats. Yes, you heard that correctly. I had to go to court for cats. Here's the story. So in the neighborhood where I used to live, we all had acreage behind our house, which butted up against some woods. And there were some wild cats that roamed the neighborhood. Unfortunately, those cats were having kittens. And every morning when I would go out to work, I would see a new kitten pancake on the road in front of my house. And it was horrible. I love animals. And so I was like, oh my God, this can't keep happening. Nobody's really taking care of these cats and they keep getting their kittens smushed. So I have to do something. So I reached out to an organization that works with feral or wild cats. And they said, you have to get the traps. Here's a vet in your area that will actually spay and neuter wild cats, give them their rabies shots, and then they can go back into the neighborhood and they won't make any more kittens. Fantastic. Very happy. So I get the traps. Really stressful to catch the cats, put them in my car, drive them to my vet, pick them up, rehab them in the shed on my property, and then put them back into the neighborhood. The good thing is that they all went through the surgery fine. They rehabbed beautifully. They were out into the neighborhood, living their best wildcat life. So winter comes and it's getting colder in New Jersey. You know, we don't get a lot of snow, but it does get very windy and cold. And I noticed that they were all kind of huddling together. So I got insulated cat houses and I put them on my side yard, one next to each other, where they could come in and out as they needed to. It had hay and insulation, and sometimes I'd warm up a little beanbag thing and put it under the hay. So they were very comfortable. So everything's going fine in my neighborhood with these cats. I would see them wandering all the way down to the end of the street, all the way in the woods. They had the full range of the neighborhood. So I come home from work one day and I see an animal control van in my driveway. And I see an animal control officer standing by the cat houses. And dopey me, I'm just like, oh my God, she must be so happy that I'm taking care of the wild cats in the neighborhood. No, she wasn't happy at all. She was, I could see by her expression as soon as I walked up, and she's like, these your cat houses? And I'm like, hi, I'm Jess. What's going on? And I said, yeah, I'm the owner of this house. These are the cat houses on my property. And she said, how many cats do you have? And I said, oh, I don't have any cats, but there are wild cats that live in this neighborhood, and sometimes they sleep in these shelters. And she said, do you ever put food out for these cats? And I said, oh yeah, sometimes if, I pull a rotisserie chicken and there's something there, we have stuff left over from dinner, but they kind of, go from house to house and eat all over the place. And she goes, but you do feed them. And I said, yeah, not thinking anything of it. And then she said, according to ordinance, blah, 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 code, whatever, on page 72 of the city ordinances, if you feed a cat, it is your cat. Do you have them licensed? I'm like, licensed? No, until this very second. And when you told me about that blah, blah rule, I didn't know that they were considered my cats. And she's like, yeah, they're your cats, so they need to be licensed. You don't have a license for any of them? And I'm like, literally, no, I just found out. And she said, okay, I'm going to have to issue you 3 tickets, one for each cat for having non-licensed cats. And I was ready I just knew from her demeanor and her stance and everything about her, nothing I was going to say was going to tell this woman not to give me the tickets. And so I said, her piss is already hot. Don't make it any worse. Deal with this later. And I was like, all right, 3 tickets. How much could that be? I'm thinking $30, $40 for each ticket. I don't know. And so then she says, so these cats are outside. And I'm like, yeah, they're wild cats in the neighborhood. Yes, they're outside. And so she said, you don't have a collar for them then for their license. And I was like, you mean the non-existent license I just found out about right now? Of course I don't have collars for them. And I said, I wouldn't want to put a collar on a wild cat. First of all, I can't touch the cats. And second of all, what if they get caught on something? And she said, there are breakaway collars. And I'm like, okay, so I don't have breakaway collars on these wild cats that I can't touch that don't have a license because I didn't know it existed. And she said, yeah, 3 more tickets. I'm like, is this happening? Am I being punked? Like, what is happening right now? So she's sitting there quickly writing out 3 more tickets. I'm standing there with my lunchbox and my backpack. Like, I'm just coming in from school, from work. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So then she says, you said you got them spayed and neutered. And I'm like, yeah. And she said, so you also got them rabies shots? Yes, I did. can I see the rabies certificates? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I go in the house, I get the rabies certificates. She looks at them. She's so happy when she sees this part. And she said, your rabies certificates are expired. I was like, oh yeah, that I got them trapped and neutered like 18 months ago. And she said, you haven't kept up with their rabies shots? And I was like, I can't touch them. And I borrowed the traps from a foundation. How am I going to get them rabies shots? And she said, well, it is your obligation as their owner to get them rabies shots. 3 more tickets. So now I'm like, all right, so this is going to be expensive. And I said, well, what do? I go to City Hall and like talk to somebody about this or pay them or whatever? And she goes, oh, no, you're going to be going to court. And the court date is on the back of the ticket. So the court day arrives. I make my sub plans. I go to the courthouse, not knowing that everybody shows up at 9 a.m. I thought there might be like blocks of times when people showed up. No, hundreds of us in the courtroom at the same time. And then I see that everybody's being called up one at a time. And I'm like, oh, dear Lord, if I go up there and say I have 9 tickets and about $1,000 in fines for feeding wild cats, I'm going to look like such a jackass, because some of the people who came up before me were like assault and battery, trespassing, drug charges, all this stuff. And I'm like, I fed feral cats, so I said, please let me just be last or something. But I didn't get called in the first session, which was like 9 to noon. The judge took a 1-hour recess. He looked like he wanted that 1-hour recess at 9 a.m. He was over everything and everybody's nonsense. And during the lunch break, I got to meet some other people who were very familiar with the court system and let me know how things work. We got along really great, and they asked me to go drink at the basement bar of the hotel across the street from the courthouse after court was done. And unfortunately, I couldn't go because I had to get back to school for a meeting, but I thought it was nice that they invited me. And then in the afternoon session, as it just started, corrections officers brought in all of the prisoners. So they start going up one by one with all of these charges, which have nothing to do with feeding feral cats. And I'm just like, oh, this is an education. So the guy who turns out to be the guy who goes before I get called up, gets called up by the judge. He's in his jumpsuit. He has a lawyer with him, public defender. And the judge reads his charges. He assaulted his girlfriend to the point of knocking her out completely and then tried to set her house on fire. So he's let off, and then I hear my name called. So I go up to the podium, I state my name, and he's like, opens my folder and goes, wait, why are you here? And I have a folder of printouts and documents, and I'm ready to go. I was a mock trial coach, and so I was ready to just, defend myself and have this case. And he's like, ma'am, calm down. Why are you here? And I said, oh, I have been feeding some wild cats in my neighborhood after I got them, spayed and neutered. And he's looking, and he goes, who was the animal control officer that wrote your tickets? And I said the name. His eye roll was almost audible. And he shuts my folder and he goes, ma'am, case dismissed. $25 for court costs. Get out of here. And I'm like, I'm out. So later on, as I ask around the town, I find out that she is notorious for hating cats, calls them a pestilence, says that they are decimating the bird population, has been known to pick up stray cats, put them in the back of their van, and then tell people they were unadoptable cats and they had been put to sleep. And the people are like, what, from my yard to your van? How is that possible? So I was dealing with somebody who truly didn't like or didn't want cats. All of that is alleged. I did no investigations beyond the consistent stories that I heard from people throughout the town. I knew from the judge's reaction that she would be hamstrung on writing me tickets again. So I kept the cat houses where they were. I kept taking care of those cats for the next decade or so. And when we moved 6 years ago, there was only 1 cat left, and he would come out of the woods every 3 weeks or so. He was fat and happy. People were feeding him. And the best part is that there were no more kitten pancakes.
And here's the first time that I ever got to pet one of the cats. This is about 5 years into taking care of them. And I noticed that with each week, he was getting a little bit closer to me. I knew the time for me to pet him was coming up, so I made sure it was recorded.